Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Atlantic Tales, when we'll travel to the Slieve Aughty Mountains in East Clare to meet singer, songwriter and ethno-musicologist Dr. Jyoshna La Trobe. Jyoshna La Trobe spent most of her life in New Zealand, but now lives in East Clare. She is a singer-songwriter and musician, and one of her passions is for the music of Indigenous people. Jyoshna is an ethno-musicologist and completed her PhD in London, basing her research on the supra-aesthetic science of kiirtan, a spiritual practice in Indian traditions. To date, she has released over 30 music collections, including a new double album which was launched at Glore in Ennis during the summer. She now lives at Sunrise Farm in the Slieve Aughty Mountains in East Clare, overlooking Lough Derg, where she leads kiirtan every day. She has had a love of music for as long as she can remember.
So I was born in England, and after 2 years we moved first to Australia for 5 years, and then we came to New Zealand. So basically I grew up in New Zealand. That's for me, my whole family came, so there was obviously my grandparents and my mum and dad came to New Zealand. We settled there, felt very happy there. For me, the connection with the Indigenous people was always something that I relished. I delighted in that the beautiful music and the music culture of the Māori was always close to my heart. So it's a good place to be growing up. I don't have memories of being in England. I have memories of the journey over on the boat at two. I remember that very clearly, the stars, the storms, that sort of thing, the music. I remember the music. Other than that, no. It took a long time. I can't remember exactly how long, maybe 6 weeks or so, to go from England to Australia. Very beautiful trip.
What do you remember of the family's reason for moving?
The reason for moving was my father got a job in Australia. He was an engineer. So we moved from England for his work, for him to work, to get a job. My father was South African, so he was already in a different part of the world. He was in the Merchant Navy, and so living in England was already difficult, was strange for him. It was something new, let's say. So going to Australia wasn't too different for him. And my mum had a sister there, so we connected with family there when we came to Australia. We stayed with them for a couple of years before getting our own place. I don't remember very much. I remember living with my cousins. I remember living by the sea. My uncle was a boat builder. I remember at times basically with family. And then I remember moving to our own place, and the landscape really struck me, the beauty of the landscape. You know, the tall gum trees, the kangaroos, the koala bears, all this sort of thing stays in my mind. Not so much about the culture there, just family and then landscape, really.
What about school?
I remember not really liking school and not wanting to go to school.
But you had to?
I had to. I don't have such good memories of school. The reason I didn't really enjoy school was because we moved so much, I think. We were on the move quite a bit from place to place. So obviously I'd be going to different schools, and that was probably unsettling. So then we moved to New Zealand because my father had a brother living in New Zealand, and he convinced him that it was the best place to be. So we moved again when I was around 7 years old. And my father got a job there at the steel mill. So my sister and I were born in England, my older sister and I. My next sister, my third sister, was born in Australia, and we moved to New Zealand, and then my first brother was born in New Zealand, and the second brother many years later. So we're kind of an international family, really.
Because you were so young going to Australia, maybe it didn't knock enough out of you moving over to New Zealand.
Exactly, I think that's true.
You settled quickly enough?
Yes, we did, yeah. We did, and of course I went to school and I immediately felt connected somehow, particularly to the Māori people. There was such a warmth about them and a connectedness between them. So that helped me settle there, yeah. I remember that new school and I liked that new school. there was lots of variety. There's such a cross-cultural connections made between myself and the Māori people and the Pacific Islanders. It was lovely, that diversity of culture there.
No problem settling into school. Making friends, would that have been difficult at that age?
It was at first a bit tricky because I was a bit older, of course, than most of the kids in the class I was in, because we'd moved. But after a while I found a close friend, and we remained friends our whole life. We're still friends now. So slowly made friends. And as I said, my best friend, I still am friends with her today.
What were you interested in, though, as a young girl, as a teenager?
I was already interested in music. I joined the Māori club, the singing club, and I remember there was a little bit of fun and games going on between myself and the Māori girls as to who could sing higher. That was a highlight for me. Yes, I was really interested in music from a very early age. In fact, I was interested in music from the beginning of my life, because I remember very clearly the sounds coming from the piano on the trip over from England to Australia, and I felt very struck by the depth that it created, depth of feeling it created in me at a very early age. The sound of playing Beethoven, and it struck me, and it remained so.
Do you remember settling into a new community with new friends, and were you welcomed into a new country, of course, as well?
I think slowly we became more part of the community in New Zealand, because my parents joined the church, and so they became part of that community, and I know that was a great help to them. And also we had our cousins there, so we felt connected to them. And yeah, the process of just connecting with the local people, with our neighbours, that was very important. We were the first in our street, and the others who came into our street, the others who started to live in our street, so it was a new housing block. You know, we knew each other. We were all very aware of each other and each other's families, and the pros and the cons and the problems and the excitement. All of that was involved in being in this new kind of little cul-de-sac. We lived in a cul-de-sac called Barnard Place in Auckland, in Manurewa actually. South Auckland it was.
O kari kari ana na waiaro turua fiti ato koe hine marino ana
Would you have travelled around New Zealand to familiarise yourself with the country and the people and the culture, of course, as well?
Actually, not so much. It was mostly like, down to work. My father was working full-time. We would go, one thing we do every Sunday, we'd go off to the beaches, because the beaches around there are beautiful, they're gorgeous. There's flat beaches, you might say, on the East Coast, and then there's the wild surf beaches on the West Coast. So we would go every Sunday out to some beach or other, far and near, and that was always a pleasure to be outside in the landscape by the beach. I mean, where we lived, we were very close to a beach anyway, like about 1.5 miles from a beach called Weymouth, but the nicer beaches were a bit further away, maybe half an hour or so. We were always close to the sea.
In school, was music a big part, and the arts generally, were they a big part of your education?
Music was something that I always loved. My grandfather was a singer and a dancer, and I remember clearly sitting at his feet with my ukulele while he'd be playing the harmonica. So that was very important for me. And my mum and dad both sang in the choir. My father had been a drummer. My mum was a singer. So music was always around us, and a big part of our lives, or important part of our lives actually.
Going through the equivalent of secondary school in New Zealand, did you have an idea, were you looking that far ahead, that you knew what you would do with your life?
I didn't really know music was a big part of my life, but I really didn't have any ambition at all. That didn't come till later as to what I wanted to do with my life. That came when I was at university. The feeling of wanting to delve down deep inside. But music was part of that. I joined a spiritual group at the age of 18, and part of that was meditation, the other part was kiirtan, or chanting. And so at that early age, I realised that somehow all of a sudden I had purpose for my music, because I'd written music before that, but I didn't feel like any real purpose behind it. Things were left incomplete, let's say. But when I joined the spiritual group, I felt, I have a reason to finish, and I started to write songs, a lot of songs. It was my way of communicating with others. I felt always from the beginning that it was important, a woman's voice was important. I always felt that. Growing up in a home where I could see very clearly like the dynamics between in our community, in our home and in our community, and how women weren't really valued as much as men were, and yet so many of the qualities that I loved were embodied in women. And so I felt like as a woman's voice was important to express. So from an early age, from that age of 18, I started to write songs, and I felt it was important to share those from a woman's perspective, yeah.
There's a flame burning in my mind, and it warms me inside. The window that keeps me alight. Maybe tonight you'll knock on my door. You'll call my name. You'll make me yours.
In college, you actually pursued music.
The first year at university, I was doing a Bachelor of Arts, and that was the year that I got involved in the spiritual group. And I finished that year, and then I left. I wanted to pursue my spiritual life. At that time, that was what was most important to me. So I left university, and I did that from 75 until 90. I was like pursuing a spiritual goal, and that reflects in my music. And then after 1990, my spiritual teacher, he passed. He died, and then I thought, okay, now I need to get a career. So I went back to university, and I did finish my BA. Then I did my masters, and my masters was something that was quite challenging, because I wanted to do it in this genre of music called Prabhat Sangeet, which is songs written by Prabhat Ranjan Saka, songs covering so many different topics, and so many songs, like more than 5,000 of them. But they didn't agree. I did 8 proposals, and they were all rejected. The last one they accepted, and that was to do like a survey of the music culture of this area in India called Ra, northeast India. So I managed to go off and do that. In those days, I could basically do whatever, stay there as long as I liked. And I stayed there for 8 months in India, researching the music culture of this area called Ra, which is an ancient region. It's like falling into a gold mine of music and dance, so rich. Very economically impoverished area, but very, very rich in music and spirituality.
Where do you believe your spirituality came from?
I think there was a sense in me as a child that, I think children have very deep thoughts and very deep feelings. I remember them clearly, really deeply, and the questions that arose in my mind then, they couldn't be answered for me. I went to church, I went here and there, and I couldn't find any answers for the questions that I had. So I had this desire to learn meditation, and in my meditation I started to unravel some of these answers that I needed in my life.
In school, had you any other possible career you might have pursued? Was there anything in your mind you would have liked to have done if you hadn't taken the path you did take?
I was interested in journalism. I was interested. I had a job. My first job was as a journalist with the local paper. So I might have pursued that. Writing was always an interest for me. So it ended up in the music. My encapsulations ended up to be like lyrics of life. Encapsulation of life ended up to be lyrics in my songs rather than like an essay or something, or an article.
The music, playing music, writing music, singing, and performing with choirs, and of course with the indigenous communities in New Zealand. What do you remember of all that?
I felt like I had a wonderful group in New Zealand called Turia, so it was 3 of us. And we wrote our own songs, and we addressed these issues of women's issues and what was happening in society. So it had a lot of social content and some spiritual content. It was a real mixture. And that we were together maybe 6 years, and we produced maybe 3 or 4 albums. That was taken up by one of the local record labels, Jyoshna. So we were promoted by Jairam. And then after some time, one of the girls decided that she wanted to do something else, so that the band was kind of split up, but not really split up because we're still in touch today. So that was an important part of my life. And, you know, together we kind of like managed to make sense of the world. We had a strong woman's perspective, but different perspectives on the woman's issues. And we managed to really express that through experimental music. And that was really a highlight for me, that experience. So I wasn't in, you might say, I wasn't in a Māori music group. We were all European girls, but we had a strong social conscience and also spiritual awareness of what was going on. So that was important for me.
Recording albums very young,
Yeah.
performing publicly. At what point did that come?
That came, when we formed this group, that started to happen. We'd be playing at festivals and different venues. So that happened from the moment we got together, really.
Those early songs you were writing, it was all got to do with women's issues. Did you have any other particular topics you liked to write about?
Yeah, I mean, of course we wrote about the usual things, love songs, as well as social songs, of course. Yeah, it was a mixture. And experimental. There was a lot of humour in it as well, and some theatre as well. Remember one we wrote called Crimson Dawn, and we were playing the spoons on plates, and we'd be having, you know, different kinds of, playing different roles and having makeup on. And it was a time of fun and experimentation.
Coming up, we'll hear more about Jyoshna's life in New Zealand, her love of music, and what in particular she writes about.
Divine fire burning in my being, scorching down to my very knees.
Welcome back to Atlantic Tales. Dr. Jyoshna La Trobe is a singer, songwriter, musician and ethno-musicologist who was born in England. At a very young age, her family emigrated to Australia, a journey that took over 6 weeks by sea. She later moved to live in New Zealand, where she spent most of her life. Jyoshna was surrounded by music growing up and even remembers hearing a piano on that ship journey to Australia, even though she was still very young at the time. She graduated with an arts degree, but later returned to college to pursue music, which was becoming increasingly more important in her life.
Music was an important part of our lives, but the other thing we were doing, which was also very important, was we formed a cooperative bakery. And it was called Mamata, Women's Co-op Bakery, and it was in Grey Lynn in Auckland. And we converted an old, it was originally a bakery, one of the first in the areas, but it had been made into a mechanic's place. But we reconverted it back to a bakery with a brick oven and everything. And we made it a safe space for women. It was a place where women could express themselves and also earn a living. So that was part of my life for a good 5 years in Auckland. And so I'd be working in the bakery at night. As you know, it's like from midnight till 10 in the morning or something. And then at some point I started to go back to university. So after some time I couldn't take it anymore physically, you know. But it was a great experience, it really was. And I really learnt so much about how it is to work in a cooperative, something I hadn't experienced before, what it takes to make one and to stick at something and make it successful, which it was. So we had a performance space, we had a practice space, we had a shop. And we had around 17 women working there at one point. It was very successful.
Are the arts catered for very well in New Zealand?
They are. There's lots of grants that you can apply for. And I myself got a grant for making my first video for one of the singles that I put out in 2000, an album called Magnificence. And I could do anything. It's called Anything. I got a grant for that. And there are grants that you can apply for. And more so these days, you know. New Zealand on Air, it's called.
What else would have inspired you with your music? I know you said love songs, and anything else inspire you as you went through life?
I guess love songs is an important part of it. And my relationship with my spiritual teacher, that relationship which I developed over time, so that formed the basis of some of my songs as well. So the spiritual part of a woman's life, a woman's voice, love songs, these are the main. And also these days more socially aware of what's happening around the world and how to deal with what we're feeling in regarding to how people are being exploited and wars and all that stuff, and the feeling of helplessness, and how do we deal with that, and what can we do, you know, as musicians, what can we do to change, to make an imprint on what's happening in the world? How can we contribute, you know? I think a lot of musicians feel like, well, what can we do? We can write a song, they can have some effect. But there's this feeling of helplessness underneath, because, you know, these things, what are happening in the world is beyond our reach. It's beyond help in some ways.
How do those issues appear on your radar? Were you watching news? Were you aware of incidents or circumstances in New Zealand? How would you have been aware of these issues?
Yeah, for example, like around the time when my band Turia were together, there was a lot of things happening regarding Māori sovereignty. Do you know, there's the Waitangi Tribunal had been set up, and there was a lot of grievances that had to be addressed, and there was a lot of things going on where injustices had been happening and were still happening, and so we were aware of that. A lot of the women in the women's community were aware of that and doing whatever they could to help with that. That was an important issue at the time, Māori sovereignty.
Did they appreciate that you understood their plight?
Yes, very much so. I mean, on the one hand, they were very staunch and assertive, but on the other hand, definitely they appreciated the support, especially from the women's movement. Definitely.
Would there have been any issues with Maori women seeing a white woman, a woman from England? Would there have been a small bit apprehensive about bringing you into the fold, maybe?
I mean, possibly. It wasn't like we were deeply into the fold, but you might say we supported from the sidelines, you know. Possibly there could have been, but at the same time you have to remember that we lived side by side. There wasn't this, the argument was with the government rather than with our neighbours, so to speak. You know, we were close with our neighbours, and we married. I mean, my sister's married a full-blooded Māori, so my nieces and nephews are all half. So it's like we married together, you know. And most of the people in New Zealand have a very close connection both ways. But it's issues that need to be resolved government-wise, land issues and things like that.
That will continue, no doubt, for years. And many would say there are many similarities between the Irish and the Maori as well. And I know there is a sort of understanding between TG Cahir, the TV station here, and one of the New Zealand TV stations. Are you aware of those similarities?
Yes, I feel that similarity very deeply, actually. I think when I was lecturing one point, I had a job as a lecturer at the School of Audio Engineering in Auckland, and I had a number of Irish students, and they were very touched. And they said things like, which made me understand there's a lot of connection there, that the similarities, and they would really appreciate, like I was lecturing in Maori music, believe it or not, but they really appreciated it, and they could feel the connections, and I could feel it through them. You
went to college, left college, went back, did your BA, your arts degree, and then you did your master's, and then you went back to university again, but this time in England. Yeah,
I finished my master's, and then I went to work. I went to work at the School of Visual Arts in Manukau as giving some lectures on Indigenous people's issues, and I did that for a number of years, and then I went over I lived in the Canary Islands for 2.5 years, and I was teaching there. And then I went to do my PhD. So I got accepted to do my PhD straight away, but I had to raise the funds for it. So it took me a bit of time, but I got there eventually, and I started it in on September 2004. Started my PhD at SOAS.
And what was the focus of your doctorate?
It was on the kiirtan, the kiirtan tradition of Ra, because I had covered the music genres in the region in my master's, and I hadn't expected this was not something unexpected, but the last thing I saw in 2000 when I went back with a group of students to do a documentary, the last thing I saw was a performance by a indigenous kiirtan group. And I couldn't believe the effect it had on me. It was like I had gone to another place. And I couldn't understand how they could have such an effect on a person. It became like an ecstatic effect. And I'd done kiirtan myself since I was 18, so it was something I'd been practicing for a long time, but I'd never had this experience. So I decided that I had to find out how they did that, what are the mechanics behind it. So then I applied to do my PhD at SOAS and got accepted. And so that's what I was going to do it on. But at first my supervisor was really hesitant, thinking it wasn't enough. It wasn't a subject that was deep enough. But when I went there and I came back after my first year, I went there again and I came back and I showed him some footage and he was going, wow, that's amazing. And he helped me to press on through that. So it took me a good 5 years to do that.
What exactly then is kiirtan?
Kiirtan it's an ecstatic performance tradition in this area of Ra. It's an ancient tradition. It's been developing for this form that I studied called Marae Kiirtan for at least 500 years, but longer in terms of it starts off with para kiirtan, which is songs that lead into chants, but I was just studying the chant side of it. And so it's been very highly developed, and it includes dance and music and singing. Kiirtan means praise music. In this area, it's in praise of Hari. Hari is their god, and Hari is like Krishna or Shiva, whatever, but it's a form of praise music, but a very ecstatic form, and a comprehensive form of praise music.
When you were working in Auckland and then back to college and then to England for your PhD, are you still writing music and performing music?
I've never stopped. I've never stopped. I mean, there's times of pause, but then it comes back again, because I think it's what makes people feel, whatever creative expression we have, it's what makes people feel connected. Being creative is like being godlike, because in our creativity we connect with our for me anyway, it's like connecting with our deepest selves and expressing whatever is there, whatever it is, it comes out, So it's a form of therapy, it's a form of spiritual connection, it's everything, So I think I've never stopped, and I hope whatever people do, whatever creative expression they have, they never stop. I think it keeps us alive and healthy.
Have the topics you've written about, have they changed? Are you still writing about women's issues, oppression, whatever it might be, love songs? Is it still a mix of what you've always written?
Yes, pretty much so. It is, yeah. I think in the last album there's some love songs there, there's some social songs there, there's a couple of songs about loss, about grief. Actually, every album has a different focus. This last couple of albums, it's been deep. It's about loss and people very close to me passing. Like my research partner, who I'd spent about 25 years with in India, he passed during COVID. So there's a song about him. There's a song about suicide, coming through that. There's a song about love. Yeah, it's about devotion. Teach Me to Surrender is about devotion. There's a song about social issues. Yeah, so it's a mixture.
About 30 albums. What was the last count?
Yeah, I haven't counted them, at least.
Is it easy to get into a studio, get studio time, get a producer for your albums?
Well, in New Zealand I have my producer Michael Lloyd, and he's been producing my music for a very long time. And when I'm in New Zealand, he's the one I go to. He works for TVNZ, he works for Sky Television. He's a wonderful producer, has produced most of the main acts in New Zealand. And he's a good friend of mine. In fact, he's Irish, living in New Zealand. And here I go to Martin O'Malley. You know, I've recorded the last 2 albums with him, Malbay Studios, and he's wonderful also.
Coming up, we'll hear more about Jyoshna's love of spiritual music, her particular passion for the Indian tradition of kiirtan, and how she has only recently returned from India, where she travelled with a group of Irish people.
If I could swim the ocean, I would swim to your side. Not a single motion would be a waste of time.
Welcome back to Atlantic Tales. Dr. Jyoshna La Trobe is a singer-songwriter and ethno-musicologist who lives in East Clare. She has a deep appreciation for the lives and culture of Indigenous peoples and worked closely with Maori women and groups in New Zealand. She has also just recently returned from one of her many trips to India. This time she took a group of Irish people to experience what Jyoshna loves so much about the country and its culture.
The area that I go, it's an Indigenous area, and it's like dropping into a gold mine, a musical, spiritual gold mine. And I go back because I feel that this is important to let people know about this region. You know, Indian music often just, you see the sitar or you see classical music, but you don't see the other side of India, which is this wild, ecstatic music, or the folk music, or the martial dances, or the circus acts. You don't see any of that of India, but where I go, that's where that exists. This other side of India, which is raw and indigenous and original.
And what was this last trip you're just back from? What was that all about?
That was fantastic. I guess it's been a highlight for me because I took with me 10 other Irish people, and it was a pilot tour to see how it would work. So my idea was I wanted to understand how we would interact with each other. So I'm taking them to my field, to my area of research, where I do my field work, and I know the groups, and I've researched these groups, and I'm exposing them to each other. So they're seeing it for the first time, these performance genres, and the performers are seeing a group of Irish people for the first time. So I was interested in the interaction between them, how they respond, and to my surprise, it went so well, more than I could ever have imagined. It just went way beyond my expectations, and they had a wonderful time, both sides. In fact, our hosts were crying when they left and saying, you know, we feel like family, you know, when you're coming back. So it was really great, and I hope to do that annually.
And how did the Irish contingent react to it's a very different culture?
Yeah. I was a bit apprehensive at first because not all except one, I think, or two, had been to India, and that was a while ago. So I was a bit apprehensive, but they all said they loved it. They just really loved it. They loved everything about it. So I'm really happy with that. They loved the music. They loved we had kiirtan training every morning with my kiirtan teacher. They had a yoga session every morning. Then we had a different performance every evening. And sometimes during the day we would go exploring the landscape. We went to Ayuda Hills, we went to the Mask Makers Village. So they had a broad, it was very intense, but they had a huge spectrum of experiences in that time. We went to the leprosy village to see the people suffering from leprosy. We no longer have it, but we went there to connect with them. So they had a broad experience, and I've only had good reports back.
Do you hope to bring more groups out?
That's my plan. This is, I feel like, something that I'm drawn to do, is to create this exchange, this bridge between cultures. So yeah, I'm hoping it'll be like an annual thing.
Coming to Ireland then, how did that all come about?
So when I was in London doing my PhD, Didi and Prama, who you've interviewed, I believe, in the past, used to invite me over sometimes to come and play kiirtan here. So I would come over. And at one point I came over and I met Kavita, who then became my partner. And she started to learn the khol drum with me. She came to India and she learned the khol drum with me. And then some years later, we went back to New Zealand to work, and then came back to do a music tour of Europe at one point, 2016 it was, and we did a music tour of Europe and at the festivals, and then at some point we'd been trying to have a child, and she got pregnant. So she came here. I had to go back to New Zealand for a while. She came here. She had our child here, Isabel. And then after some time, she decided that she wanted to change that relationship. So, but I stayed. I stayed because we had a child. And so I stayed, and so I've been here as a part-time mum, looking after Isabel, and then living on the farm and doing the music. So I came back, and why I stayed in Ireland was because my daughter lives down the road, and I don't regret it at all, because I find the Irish people to be the most lovely people, and the music to be so rich, and only the weather's a bit tricky, challenging, but culturally I think it's very rich here, and for me it's the best place to be in terms of Europe. I think this is the best place for me. You're
in the most beautiful part of Clare. If we jump across the road, I think we're in County Galway. This alone must be inspirational.
Yeah, it is. I love it. I just feel my studio looks out onto, as you see, this area here, the bogland and the lake, and the colours are just incredible. They're just really beautiful.
Jyoshna has settled in picturesque East Clare in the Slieve Aughty Mountains. She lives at Sunrise Farm near Whitegate, a 38-acre ecological farm overlooking Lough Derg, where she leads kiirtan sessions every day.
So here on the farm is a Sunrise. It's owned by Sunrise Education Trust. It's a charity, and it's for education, health and happiness. So here, when I'm here, I contribute through the kiirtan in other ways, playing kiirtan as well. And everyone here is like a volunteer. And as a volunteer, you work and in lieu you get accommodation and food. You can contribute in whatever way you like. Some people, as you know, I'm into the music. Other people are good at gardening, construction, whatever. So we're trying to build. We're building a community here based on as a spirit, with a spiritual base, based on, and also on sustainability. So we have some organic vegetables, and we have blueberries and things like that we sell to maintain the farm. We have a bakery where we bake and sell goods at the local market, this kind of thing. We have regular meditation and yoga and kiirtan, which is available to anybody to come and join us. So it's like an eco-community.
So what is your daily routine, your daily life nowadays?
Nowadays, so basically, as I said, I do my spiritual practice in the morning. I go down for the meeting at the farm at 9. We talk about what needs to be done. And I also look after Isabel half-time, and whenever I have time I write music. I organise performances. I'm part of the arts committee, Mount Chiltern Arts Committee. So my days are very full, very rich and very full. with either looking after my daughter, doing things on the farm, or somehow involved with the music. I formed a group recently with Lucy Thomas and Yam Aquino, and so they're jazz musicians, and I'm very happy with that group. And with Kalita, so we're friends still, with my ex-partner, and as well, who sings backing vocals, Alice as well. So I have a great band, and I'm very happy playing with them. So whenever we get the opportunity, we play together.
The light in your eyes, sublime, surprise.
Do you think that Irish people generally could learn a lot from Indian cultures, other cultures where people do take care of themselves, where well-being is top of their list maybe? Not every Irish person knows of yoga, maybe not aware of kiirtan, for example. Do we take care of ourselves from a mindfulness perspective as much as we should?
I think it's a process in life, isn't it? It's something that we grow in ourselves, and we are inspired by others, you know. And I can see, like in Indian culture, where there's no social security, for example, where people rely on their families and their tribal connections, or their connections with other, other castes maybe, and other tribes. They rely on that for their well-being, you know. That give and take kind of a thing is very powerful there, as it is in traditional Maori communities, you know. That's something that we can learn from. As I said, you know, the people we went to India together with, they felt this really love and care, really felt it strongly, and I think that's something that is deeply embedded in tribal cultures. It's very apparent in where we stayed in India, and also in Māori culture, and I think we can learn from that, surely.
How do people welcome or maybe accept the likes of kiirtan, yoga, the parts of life that can help you, mind and body?
Yeah.
When you meet people who haven't been exposed to it before but might need it very badly.
Yeah, it's really amazing for mental health, actually. Part of my research is on what are the mental health benefits of kiirtan, you know, for others, and that's something that has taken up a lot of my research. So, you know, I've recorded stories about the benefits of kiirtan, but mostly it's about allowing ourselves to sing together, and to sing something often in Sanskrit, but basically just to sing together in a repetitive way where it's not related to anything kind of mundane. It's more related to one's connection with one's higher power, with God or whatever. It's related to that. So immediately there's this feeling of a kind of openness. And when you're singing together, that creates a bond, a social bond as well. But the deepest benefit of kiirtan is that it aids in one's meditation. So if you're singing for a little while, even just 10, 15 minutes, some kiirtan chant, some chant or whatever, and then you close your eyes and you sit for a moment, you can really absorb that energy that you've aroused inside of yourself, that spiritual nurtured feeling. You after you sing kiirtan, if you sit for a moment, you just feel you're nurturing yourself in a very deep way. So there's really this sense of very deep relaxation that comes after singing kiirtan and then sitting for a moment. So, you know, that feeling of deep relaxation is very rare these days in our society, the way we live. So even if we take a few minutes to do kiirtan and then sit afterwards, it has huge benefits to mental health, for mental health reasons. We held one recently in the library for Mental Health Day, and now we're doing one every month at the Scariff Library on the third Thursday of each month. We're doing one which is open for everybody to come and experience.
Do you find more and more people are curious and are coming along? Do you see different faces every time? It's
interesting because, you know, kiirtan attracts all kinds of people, from the most intellectual to the most labouring types. It attracts a huge variety of people, and people who you wouldn't even kind of imagine wanting to do kiirtan are sitting and doing kiirtan now. I see that. I go to this thing called Chant and Joy in Dublin once a month, and again it's a wide spectrum of people. They're sitting there from all kinds of backgrounds. It's wonderful to see that. They can feel the benefits, and even if they're sceptical when they come, which is fine, but they sit for 5-10 minutes, they can get into the flow and enjoy it.
The future then, Jyoshna, still writing music, still recording as well, but have you a bigger plan? Have you a master plan for your future here?
Master Flynn, that's to be unravelled. That's to be unravelled. I'm open to whatever possibilities that come my way. And of course we'll continue making music, continue playing with the band. Looking forward to playing at festivals, and very open to whatever opportunities come my way.
Is it alright?